Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we're going to be covering 3 MagDK DK builds for you, and I'd have to say before we go into it that MagDK DK isn't really in a good spot. Again, if you want to play MagDK, probably the best way to play it is going to be sword and board and mitigate a lot of the damage, and everything, like all your dots, are block cast capable. Because we are doing Scorpion right now, the Scorpion build, we're playing a kind of a unique burst setup, and it works out okay, but I just wish that MagDK was in a better spot. So don't take MagDK too seriously if you're trying to go into Battlegrounds or anything like that, unless you just run with your stereotypical sword and board and double sword and board or sword and board Resto on the back bar. Anyways, let's jump right in. So this is my Scorpion setup. Monster setup. We've got 2 pieces Valken Scoria. We are a 5 heavy, 2 light setup on this, and I kind of like the way that works. We could run 7 heavy. We are taking a lot of damage right now. I think everybody's taking damage right now, and so, but anyways, 5 heavy, 2 light, running Scoria, and you can see that adds additional pen, and then when you deal damage with the damage over time effect, you have an 8% chance to summon a meteor that deals 9,900 flame damage to the target and 3,700 splash damage. So, and this seems to proc pretty often. We do have 3 abilities that have dots attached to them. So we've got Burning Embers, and then our Burning Talons, and then on our back bar when we do our armor buff, Volatile Armor. And those 3 are going to be the ways that we will proc that Scoria. Hits very hard in Battlegrounds, and we need that type of burst damage. Next set that we are running is going to be Mechanical Acuity. The reason being is I'm a big fan of Mechanical Acuity, even though they extended the very bottom there. It says this effect can occur once every 21 seconds. Mechanical Acuity, the nice thing about it, when that window comes around, the 5-second window, when you deal direct damage, you gain unerring mechanical vision for 5 seconds, granting you 100% critical strike chance. Okay, we know that a lot of people's crit resistances are on the low right now because of CP and things like that. Plus, this is the Battleground build, so everybody's crit resistance, unless they're running Impreg, everyone's crit resistance is going to be on the low, so Mechanical Acuity really does work for you. Also, if you think about the way that it procs on this build, when we start looking at our abilities, we get it right off the jump when we attack somebody. So there's that. The next set that we are running is Draugr Sash, and this is from Unhallowed Grave. And you can see that the 2 pieces Max Magicka, the 3 pieces even more Spell Pin, which is great. The 4 piece is Magic Recovery, and then the 5 piece, dealing direct damage to an enemy, places a ghostly curse on your enemy for the next 6 seconds. Cursed enemies take an extra 603 extra damage from all your damage abilities. This effect can occur once every 9 seconds. So the thing about it is this. So when Mechanical Acuity procs, okay, we've got a 5-second window. So when I change somebody and I pull them in, Draugr, the 603 extra damage will all crit as well. And so I don't know if it was intended that way, but that's the way it's working right now. And so Draugr will be a damage over time effect, and I'll pull up some video footage so you can kind of see that working down at the bottom. It looks like a damage over time. It's triggering as a damage over time right there, and then up at the top is all direct damage. So I thought that that was really cool. Might give me a little extra burst on people right at the beginning. So now this build is not complete per se, because I do have infused on this Draugr ring. However, both of these are not infused. So if I wanted to squeeze out an extra 100, 200, between right around 200 extra spell damage, I could. I can tell you that it might be better to maybe do infused on one and infused on the other, but go magic recovery on the other, because sustain on this is a little rough, especially in extended fights. So because this is a thematic build and we're just trying to have fun on a MagDK as opposed to trying to be too sweaty, or just run the stereotypical MagDK build that somewhat works right now, we are running dual wield. So Scorpion, if you know anything about Scorpion, he has a single blade katana, and then this is going to be his hook that he pulls people in with his chain. So we are Nirnhoned on the main hand, and then we are sharpened on the offhand. And so what you want to do is you never want to have both Nirnhoned. It ends up being better that you run sharpened on the offhand. And then we're running the Resto staff on the back bar, and it is defending. And then you can see when we double tap or tap somebody with the Resto staff on the back bar, we'll get an extra 348 spell damage. And so when we buff up, so it's extra 350 spell damage on top of the 440. So we're going to be at about 4,800 spell damage, we'll say. 4,800 spell damage is pretty nice. So, all right. So that is that. Let's look at the abilities here and talk about the combo and the way it lines up. I'm going to show you some footage here real quick of how the combo looks. And basically what we do is we put a volcanic rune on the ground, and then we're going to try and chain somebody into the volcanic rune and hit them with a whip and a leap. And it's just a lot of burst damage right up front, and I would have to say that MagDKs aren't typically known for burst damage, right? It's tank their tails off type gameplay. And so this is a different way to play MagDK, and I guess that makes it somewhat fun to attempt. And so Volcanic Rune, when we look at this unbuffed, it's got an 8100 tooltip on it, and basically it puts a rune on the ground and it has a very obnoxious knock-up effect to it. So it knocks the person up in the air if they step on it before you chain them in, because when you chain somebody and pull them to you, it grants them CC immunity, okay? And it doesn't stun them, it just grants them CC immunity. However, if I put Volcanic Rune on the ground, it's still going to explode to do the damage. And so hit them with the chains, that pulls them in. It also is considered direct damage, which procs both my armor sets, Mechanical Acuity and Draugr. And then this is a guaranteed crit on them, and then the whip is a guaranteed crit on them. And then I'll Talons them in place and leap on them. And so everything in that 5-second burst window is guaranteed crits because of Mechanical Acuity. And Draugr, the burst helps a little bit with extra damage during that initial burst. Now the true value of Draugr comes while Mechanical Acuity, you get your first initial burst with Draugr because of the cooldown on it as opposed to the cooldown on Mechanical Acuity. So your first burst on people will include both sets. The second burst will only be Draugr. And so this Draugr kind of gives you extra bite between your next Mechanical Acuity coming up, and then when they both overlap, it looks really nice. So but most of the time I'm just going to lay down a Volcanic Rune, and then we're going to chain somebody into our group, and they're going to take that damage and take this damage, and then I'll hit them with the Talons and immobilize them, and we're fighting. If they trigger the Volcanic Rune, I'll make sure to put another one down, and the cost on it isn't that bad actually. If you were to look at the cost on this, it's way less than if we were to run with Fossilize. Fossilize is 4,000. Now this does both a stun and an immobilization, so it would basically be the cost of both of these, right? And so that could be the play, but it's not thematic, you know, for Scorpion or a different way play style. And so that's what we were playing with, was a different play style on this. But another thing that I found with this too is because we are melee, let's say it's domination, I can sit this down and then just stand on it. If a Nightblade jumps on me, he goes flying up in the air, and then I immediately Talons. So he just got stunned, and it's an obnoxiously you know, high knock up in the air, and he's also immobilized or rooted, and he's already taking burning damage. And so we'll make sure we put burning embers on him and start, you know, whipping. But anyways, that's kind of the play. You can just set this down and stand on it and wait for somebody to gap close to you. I'll show you another clip right here. I had this on the ground and was hanging out near it, and the guy used crit charge to come at me, and before he even got to me, he went flying up in the air, and so it was pretty cool, and I challenged him, I believe. But anyways, this gives you a little home to fight on, you know, set it down and then just go to work. So going through the abilities real quick. Unrelenting grip, and this launch a fiery chain to grasp and pull an enemy to you, dealing 5200 unbuffed. Hitting the target grants you major expedition. That movement speed is very important, and the target cannot be pulled. If the target cannot be pulled, you restore 100% of the magicka cost. So this attack cannot be dodged or reflected, and so that's kind of cool. When you're facing the very dodgy people, it's still going to yank them in as long as they don't have CC immunity at that time. We are running Molten Whip, and I might want to consider switching this to the other one, but I wanted the most potential burst damage, and it just so happens that Unrelenting Grip is within that same class tree, and that's how you buff this up. So it works out really well. You can see while slotted, whenever you activate a different Ardent Flame ability, you gain a stack of Seething Fury, which increases the damage of your next Molten Whip by 33%, and your weapon and spell damage by 75%. And so I'll run out real quick, and we're going to buff up and see what our whip tooltip will get up to. And then Burning Embers is our dot pressure, and it does upfront damage as well, and then it heals us for 75%. And so when we're going into extended fights, I want to get that dot pressure on them and also know that that heal is coming afterwards, and if I need to reapply this for a heal, we will. And then, like we said, we're running Volcanic Rune. Volcanic Rune is a very underutilized ability. If you've never seen it before, it's in the Mages Guild, and you have to get fairly far down to get it. It starts out as Fire Rune, and then we've got this. And so read this: inscribe a rune of cosmic fire on the earth, which takes 2 seconds to arm and lasts for 36 seconds. So the cost is fairly low at 2500 magicka, and then it lasts 36 seconds, so it gives you a place to stand on. When triggered, the rune blasts all enemies in the target area for 8100 unbuffed. Flame damage, knocking them into the air and stunning them for 3 seconds. So the CC on it is really nice, and because this is such an underutilized ability, you catch a lot of people off their, you know, with this. They just don't see it. Also, when I put this on the ground, I can see where it's at. They can only see it for that initial time frame that the fire is burning in the middle, and then as soon as that dissipates, they don't see it there at all. So all they would see me is just standing here, and then they would gap close in or come in to fight me, and then get full, you know, tossed up into the air. So that's pretty cool. Another thing too is the knockup is so obnoxious that you can actually get almost 2 whips off on the person before they hit the ground, or as they hit the ground, and then you talons them and hit them with another whip. And so this is fun. It's not your typical way to play magicka DK. It's not your typical way to play a MagDK, but it's thematic and fun. Ferocious Leap, and it does flame damage and gives us a shield, and I would say this is our go-to ultimate. Now, if I'm in Imperial City, I'm going to sit on my ultimate as much as I can. Like, if I can put people away with just this stuff, I'd like to, because of some CP points, that how we have it allocated. We are running Cauterize. I was trying to run Rapid Regen here, but sometimes I'd get this heal, sometimes I wouldn't, and ultimately it was hot, and I like the burst potential on this. Cauterize is too juicy of a heal not to run, so I ended up running Cauterize over Rapid Regen. And then we are running Blessing of Restoration, and the heal on this isn't too bad, and then it also grants Minor Resolve, increasing you and your allies' physical resistances by almost 3000. And so our resistances on this build are pretty respectable. You can see we're over cap on our spell resistance, and then we're at 30,000 on our physical resistances. So, and we are mostly heavy armor, so being just a little under on our physical is not that big of a deal. It would be different if we were under on our magical, right, being a mostly heavy. So yeah, you can also see that we are running mist form, elusive mist, and MagDKs are extremely slow. They're just a really slow class. And there's going to be times where I need to line of sight, or I need to reposition myself, or I've burned through all my stamina because everything on my offensive bar is block cast capable. And what I mean by that is I can hold block while I'm casting all of it. Even putting the rune down, you can see that my sigil never broke. You know, everything that I do from this, I can just hold block and fight. And so because of that, you burn through your stamina fairly quickly. So in those moments when your stamina gets dangerously low, it's better to just disengage from the fight and go into elusive mist and burn what magicka, start watching your magicka burn, but your stamina's coming back, and so that's pretty important. We are running molten armaments, and you could make an argument to run degeneration from the Mages Guild if you wanted to run that for more dot pressure. It's, you know, 1,000 damage on a player, and it's 2,000 magicka, only lasts 12 seconds, so no, looks like 24 seconds, as opposed to 4,200. It's a lot higher magicka expense, but it lasts 36 seconds, and it increases your damage with your heavy attacks by 50%. And because we are dual wield, I think that increasing the dual wield heavy attacks is pretty nice. And we're Scorpion, we got flaming weapons, so why not? Thematic. Volatile armor, it applies a dot, gives us our major resolve, and the dot on it isn't too bad. You can see spray of spikes around you, causing enemies you hit to take 10,000 unbuffed magic damage over 10 seconds. So, and then while active, your armor returns 1,300, almost 1,400 magicka to enemies that use a direct damage attack against you in melee range. So, and then the ultimate on the back bar is Swarming Scion. If you really wanted to bully some people, you could do that. However, Swarming Scion's not necessarily thematic for Scorpion. So once I get my Resto staff leveled up completely, we will go with the Resto ult, and then we'll go with Life Giver, and it'll give me all three of these things at the same time. And so then we'll have a really seriously strong healing kit, because like I said, I sit on my ultimate for the most part. This is only 128, so if I've got Take Flight up and available, I'll know that I'll have this available too. So most of the time, not Take Flight, but Ferocious Leap, most of the time Ferocious Leap's the go-to, because it's a stun, damage, and a shield, you know. So, but there are going to be times where I'm dangerously low on everything, or I need to just tank out some people. We might hit that Resto ult. So go ahead and get all your passives from everything. Like I said, we are too light, and so I just picked those up, and then we are heavy. And the race is a Nord. We did take a hit to our rugged passive, and so we did lose some resistances. However, when we take damage, we still get the 5 ultimate, which can occur every 10 seconds, and that is really nice. Another thing you could do, if you didn't want to run Ferocious Leap, you could probably run Meteor, and that's pretty cool. Let's see. So, let's jump into the CP. I was going to show you something else, but I don't remember what it is. Champion points on this. We're going to talk about the slottables. And right now we've got Sustained Shadows. Reduces the cost of Sneak by 1% per stage. So I have a 50% cost reduction to Sneak. That's important because we are a vampire. And so if we need to, we can crouch and move from point A to point B. And we also have Fleet Phantom, reduce the movement speed penalty of Sneak by 5 per stage. So we have a 25% reduction penalty to movement speed. So we move 25% quicker, I guess, when we or reduces the movement speed penalty. So we move 25% quicker than usual when stealthed, and so there that is. And I might do that from time to time just to try and get to a better vantage point because we are such a slow class as a MagDK. And Steed's Blessing, increase your out of combat movement speed by 20%. That's nice. And then Rationer, this increases 30 minutes on our food. So when I pop a Bewitched Sugar Skulls, it will go up to 3 hours. So let's do that. And let's look at our food. And you can see our food right there. 3 hours. Boom. That's pretty nice. And once you get these right here, oh, we also have Treasure Hunter, but once you pick these up there, everything else is just kind of whatever you want to do. These end up being fairly important for my play style, but if you wanted to pick these up, you could. The green's kind of a flex. All right. First thing I do when I come over here to Warfare is I'm going to pick up Untamed Aggression, which is 150 spell damage, and then I'm going to work my way up the tree and I'm going to pick up Wrathful Strikes, which is another 165 spell damage, and then I'm going to work my way up to these two, and we're going to pick up Deadly Aim, which increases damage done of our single target attacks, and we're also going to increase Thaumaturge. So the upfront direct damage of all of our abilities is increased by this, like our whip and chains, and then even our Burning Embers has direct damage at the front of it, and then all of our dot damage, the 3 abilities with our dot damage, is increased by 10% for that. And when you're working your way up to there, we'll jump into this and see. I do have more pen right here. I've got 40, and then we do increase your chance to apply magical status effects by 60%, and that's important, and that helps out with sustain on MagDK. And then we also get another 100 spell damage towards our Magic Flame, Frost, and Shock damage, so that works out really well. And then if we come into here, I do have an extra 4% healing taken, and then we do have an extra 4% damage reduction to magical attacks, and that's helping because we are 5. So we're basically only taking, well, because we're 5 heavy and 2 light, we shouldn't be taking any additional magical damage. So there that is, but we needed that to pull that off. And then we're starting to stack right now more resilience, which is critical resistance. So as we get CP, we start putting it there. And right now I only have 10 points into this. That was just to get us up to there, and I've got 40 points increasing our max magicka pool, which this is a passive, it's not a slottable, and I am going to put 40 points to increase our stam pool even more, because like I said, most everything is block cast capable. Now if you didn't want to go towards the damage side, which is what I did, and you wanted to get rid of this, either one of those, and work your way up to here, you could actually start getting more healing received, and that would be a smart way to go on a MagDK as well. So alright, so my slottables over here, we had talked about why I like sitting on my ultimate. I like sitting on my ultimate because of strategic reserve. This is the equivalent of 1500 health recovery, and because we are using Bewitched Sugar Skulls, our health recovery will hang out between 2000 and I've seen it like at 3800. So, and as a matter of fact, let's jump out real quick and see. So our ultimate right now is only at 160, so, and you can see our health recovery is at 1600. So as our health recover, or as our ultimate gets up towards 500, this will get over 3000 health recovery, and so that helps us feel a little bit more tanky. It's offsetting incoming damage that's coming in. As the damage comes in, our health recovery ticks, and so there that is. So strategic reserve is pretty nice. If you don't want to run with that, you don't have to. I would say that there's a couple other places you could go. One of them would be Juggernaut, and it's while under the effects of crowd control immunity, you take 2% less damage per stage. So I think this gets up to a 10% damage reduction when you're on CC immunity, during your CC immunity stage. And so there's a 6-second window from hard CCs, and So that is pretty nice. So if you wanted to come off that and go there. However, I like the health recovery. If you are a werewolf, do not run with strategic reserve. We're not a werewolf on this. So siphoning spells restores 1500 magicka whenever an enemy dies. And so if you're running Imperial City and you're killing mobs in the sewers, creatures are dying a lot, and you've got really nice sustain in the CP situation where there's trash mobs around by using this. And because I said everything that we do is block cast capable, getting stamina back in the tank is very important as well. And so Bloody Renewal, every time we kill a mob we got 1500 magicka and stamina coming in. That's cool. We're running Rejuvenation, which gives us 150 health magicka and stamina recovery. That's nice. And then some other important things are reduce the cost of block by 20 per stage. So we have a block cost reduction of 80. Everything's block cast capable. And then the amount of damage you can block, right now we've got 4% damage mitigation on top of, as a DK, you have a class passive that gives you right here 10%, increase the amount of damage you block by 10%. So start stacking that mitigation. So another thing I'll pick up eventually is going to increase the movement speed while bracing or holding block, and so that will be really nice. We do have 40 points for extra health, and reduce the duration of elemental status effects by 25%, and reduce the dodge roll. We find ourselves dodge rolling less and holding block and fighting more, so we dodge roll from time to time, and then break free, we reduce the cost of that. So that is the CP, everyone. Again, this is a thematic build. If you're looking for something different or a different way to play a MagDK, this is it. I would have to say they're not in a good spot right now. There's different ways that you could play them, but for the most part, to play them successfully, you need to run sword and board and mitigate a bunch of damage through the sword and board passives, and Frank the Tank people's faces off. And that gets a little old, and so this is just a change of pace on that. So everybody have a good day. Hang out for the next build. We're going to do the no proc build, and it is actually going to be a ranged MagDK. Thanks. Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. We're going to cover our Cyrodiil no proc build here, and at this point a lot of people have been releasing builds, and so this build is not going to be anything new or spectacular. There's just far too few of different combinations that you can use. However, I'm putting this on here because I'm doing a 3 build Magicka DK setup, and this is one of the most proven or successful builds. And I'd have to say that I tried to pull off a light armor MagDK, and it is extremely hard. And the reason being is, so if you're a Mag Sorc, you can pull off light armor no problem because you have streak and you have shields to stack and you have an immense bursty offense, right, on a sorcerer. You can also pull off light armor on a Magicka Nightblade because you can hop in and out of stealth, and your primary spammable, like a heavy attack to swallow soul, heals you, or if you're using Dark Cloak. But ultimately you can kind of pick and choose your fights on a Magicka Nightblade. On a MagDK you are historically slow and that's what everybody knows, MagDKs are slow, and so we're stuck there in the fight. And so the typical MagDK play style is I stand my ground, I dot everyone up, and it's a battle of attrition. I'm going to win the battle of attrition and dot them down and make them not want to fight me, and that's kind of the way. Now if you saw the Scorpion build already at this point, we were playing a very bursty type setup to a MagDK, a very unique type setup. We're not doing that on this one. You could, if you wanted to incorporate that playstyle into this, you could do it, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So this is going to be a heavy armor setup. It's your typical play style for a MagDK. Here it is. We're running one piece Scoria. This is heavy, and we need this for the additional spell pin. We're running one piece Grothdar for max mag, and that is heavy. First armor set we're running is going to be Shackle Breaker. We need that extra stamina and magic recovery, the additional spell damage, and then the max stats. Our entire offensive kit is block cast capable, and so that's how we negate a lot of the damage that is incoming on MagDKs, is by block casting our offense. And so we need max mag and we need max stam. And the set that we have it paired with is going to be Amber Plasm, and Amber Plasm is going to give us the 2-piece max mag, the 3-piece is some spell crit, the 4-piece is some spell damage, and then we get all those recoveries, which are great. Another thing that MagDKs are known for is their terrible sustain. Their abilities are just overpriced in my opinion. It costs way too much to maintain. And another content creator had mentioned this, and he was on point when he brought this up, but if you were to compare, say, Burning Ember, you know, and the dot that comes from it and the heal, compare it to Venomous Claw, okay, like if you took the same stat type build in stamina versus same stat type build in Magicka, Venomous Claw wins every day of the week, and it's because the dot on Venomous Claw starts ramping up. The damage, the longer that it's on a target, does more and more, and so MagDK really needs that to be competitive. And so anyways, those are the setups. Shackle Breaker, we need all of that additional recovery, spell damage, and max stats, and then we paired it with Amber Plasm, so that way we have some more recoveries. It's been working out really well. There's nothing spectacular to this play style of a MagDK, and it's just sad that light armor is where it's at right now. It's non-existent for a lot of classes, because 75% or greater of PvPers play on stamina classes, and they are absolutely blowing up light armor people. So not even, it's killed light armor. It's not worth trying to play unless you're a Magic Nightblade or Sorcerer. So this is set up. You can see, I'll go through each piece real quick. I got the Prismatic Enchant on all my pieces, and we are running Impen on these, and this one is reinforced, and then I'm running infused spell damage on my Amber Plasm jewelry, and then I've got a Destro staff. You could run a flame. Right now I've got a lightning staff, and it's Nirnhone for some extra damage. Lightning staff's pretty nice. If I need to get some Magicka back in the tank, I can just channel a lightning heavy attack, and it'll maintain pressure on the target, plus give me magic back, and that works out really well. Could be a flame staff if you want. And then we've got Sword and Board. Sword and Board's probably the way to go for MagDK. I like the Scorpion build, it's fun, but it's very costly in the extended fights where I'm block casting and trying to be offensive. I have to get them out quick because my stamina doesn't go as far on dual wield as opposed to being on Sword and Board. So there that is. Let's look at the abilities on the bar, and then we'll look at things buffed up. We are running Pierce. Pierce is going to apply Major Breach and Minor Breach, so it's almost 9k resistance is gone on a target. That's important. We are running Molten Whip. You can run the other whip morph too if you choose, because we have both an immobilization and a hard CC on this class, so if you wanted to get that whip heal off, you could. And so the mobilizations through Burning Talons, and the hard CC or the stun is from Ferocious Leap. So Burning Embers, we already saw this, some upfront damage, some damage over time, flame damage, and then it heals you for 75% of the total damage inflicted. And enemies hit by the initial hit are afflicted with the burning status effect. That's important to know because it appeals to one of your passives. So for sustain, Burning Talons is our immobilization. It does have some upfront damage, and then the dot damage on it is respectable, even though it's over 4 seconds. It's almost 7k. over 4 seconds, and while these are longer, the dot tick on this is equal or greater. And then we're running Engulfing Flames. This is a conal attack in front of me, has some upfront direct damage as well, and afflicted enemies take more damage from all flame damage attacks based on your offensive stats with a maximum of 10%. So even though we are Tanky McTankerson, Tank DK, you can see we're still at 9k. I don't know if that goes up to 10 when we buff up. Let's look here real quick and see. Yeah, 10% just by buffing up. There you go. And we're running Ferocious Leap. The cost on this is only 128. It has some 15k, almost 16k flame damage, and it stuns, and then we get a huge shield. This helps keep us in the fight. With the shield, it covers our health, so that way we can get a couple burning embers off or some heals to get health back in the tank, and it also gives us some resources back, obviously, through the Battle Roar passive, so that works out really well. On the back bar, here's a little bit of a different thing. We're running Obsidian Shard, and if you haven't seen this ability, there are other content creators that laugh at this ability. The other morph is like, they call it poop rocks or whatever, and it has its place for PvP, but it's widely underused. And this ability, Obsidian Shard, is non-existent in PvP world. A lot of people don't use it, and I think that they're missing out on the boat by not using this. So while the cost is high, the burst on this is ridiculously high, the heal on it, and it can heal up to 2 allies near the enemy or 10,000 health, and that's unbuffed. And you can see the range up there is 28 meters, and the radius is 28 meters, so it can heal up to 2 enemies, or 2 allies, I mean. And then we're running Cauterize. It's really low cost. It's going to pop or heal 4 times with each cast. The initial heal comes right as you trigger it, and so because it's such a low costing ability, if you needed to spam it for some quick heals, you could, or to try and help someone else, you could do that. Although this should be the go-to, and I'll show you the heal on that here in a second. While slotted, you gain Major Prophecy, increasing your spell critical, and this ability scales off your highest offensive stat. We are running Elusive Miss, and that's because MagDKs are extremely slow, and if you've played a MagDK before, what'll happen is if you don't have enough ultimate to get stamina back in, and you're not really in a position to be channeling heavy attacks because you're under fire and you're trying to evade, Elusive Miss is the way to go. It allows you to come off of holding blocks, so stamina starts coming back in, and you can just start derping around in mist form, laughing like Krusty the Clown. So you'll be burning magicka in that moment, taking minimal damage, but your stamina is coming back in, and that's basically how I juggle this particular play style. If I'm block casting too much, we'll go mist form and kite for a little bit to get the stamina back in the tank. We are running Molten Armaments. If you wanted to run Degeneration from the Mages Guild for some extra dot pressure, you could. I like Molten Armaments because when I'm trying to get magicka back in the tank, I'm channeling lightning heavy attacks, and the lightning heavy attacks hit 50% harder, so that's good. Also, this ability, while it has a higher cost, it also has a longer duration. You can see it lasts for 36 seconds, and so that's cool. Also, the effect with your weapons on fire looks super cool, and half of this ESO end game is all about style, right? And so we are running Volatile Armor. This is going to be our major resolve armor buff, and then it releases spikes around you, a spray of spikes for almost 12,500 magic damage over 10 seconds. While active, the armor also returns 1,600 magic damage to enemies that are using direct damage attacks to you within melee range. And so just by having your armor buff up, you get all those bonuses, and reapplying it in the middle of the fight, that's great. Something to note about this too is because of a passive, this one right here, Burning Heart. While a draconic power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%. You get 12% more healing while your armor buffs up, so you can't really beat that. So And then we're running Swarming Scion on our back bar. I think this is the best way to kind of tank down on people or kind of bully them. If I need to channel some heavies, I'm completely out of resources, but this ultimate is ready. We can hit this ultimate and then just heavy attack away, get resources. It could be either the sword and board heavy attack to get stamina or the lightning staff to get magicka back. And so this is a great way to become a bully. Get all your passives. We are a Nord, and as far as food goes, in Mundus, we're using the Atronach for more magic recovery, and we're a stage 1 vampire, and we are using Bewitched Sugar Skulls. So let's buff up here. I want to see if I can find something to hit. Look at that dude right there. He's perfect. Come here, my guy. And we're just going to hit him with this, and there was a 13k heal, there's a 13k heal, there's a 20k heal from that ability, and I'm still leveling that ability, right? It's not even fully leveled yet, and it's like 13 or 20k. So that the heal from that is pretty darn impressive, and a lot of people don't realize that yet. So test that out for yourself. Like I said, I was running rapid regen there when I was running a Resto staff on the back bar, and there were some times that the rapid regen would heal someone else and it wouldn't even heal me. And at the end of the day, it's just a hot, and I needed a burst heal. So the combination of these two worked out really well for burst heals. Okay, let's jump into the CP. Okay, so the first things first, we are a vampire, and I do crouch and sneak around on the battlefield sometimes to get to a better position, or if I feel like I'm going to get pinched. And so sustaining shadow, reduce the cost of sneak by 50%. That's nice. And I pair that with, all the way over here, Fleet Phantom. Reduce the movement speed penalty of sneak by 25%. Works out really good. Reduce the radius you can be detected while sneaking by up to 1 meter. That's nice. So now we're sneaking around and it's hard for them to find us. As far as slottables though, we've got Sustaining Shadows, and then we got Steed's Blessing, increasing our movement speed out of combat by 20%. And we've got Treasure Hunter here, and then we've got Rationer. And the Rationer is pretty nice. It increases your food duration by 30 minutes. So when I pop a Bewitched Sugar Skull, I get a full 3 hours out of it. So that's crazy. Everything else as far as passives are completely up to you, what you want to do, but these are the slottables I went with. Here, 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 and here. Next tree. Okay. The very first thing that I do on this tree is I go to Untamed Aggression, and I get 150 spell damage from that. We slot that. Next thing I do is I work my way up, and we get Wrathful Strikes, and that's another 165 spell damage. Then we come over here and start buffing our damage. You need to put points in here to get up to here, so let's talk about this first. I always drop 40 points into there, so that way we get another 1400 offensive penetration, and then increase your chance to apply magical status effects by 60%. This is important because of our combustion passive for MagDKs, and so this is helps us sustain. And then we get another 100 spell damage over here at the end with War Mage. Then we can work our way up here. Deadly Aim, increase the damage done with single target attacks. So our whip's going to be increased by this, and all of our initial upfront damage from our other abilities are increased by this. And then Thaumaturge increases the damage over time effect of those components, and so that works out. So that's our slottables there. And this is important. Now let's go look at this here real quick. So right now I've got an extra 4% healing received, and reduce the damage you take from magical damage attacks. Because we are wearing mostly heavy armor right now, we're taking more magical damage, so I'm trying to offset some of that magic damage that we take. And I'm going to get these points back at some point, and because this is a slottable and we're just not going to slot it, and we'll probably go into Martial, reducing that. Another thing too is we're going to pick up some of this for another 1000 max stamina at some point. That's not a slottable, it's just passive. We did it over here on Max Magicka, and down the road we start working our way up here, so our healing is improved greatly. Slottables over here. I don't need my ultimate. If I'm finding that I'm face tanking people just fine, applying pressure, and people are getting killed, I just sit on my ultimate. And when you sit on your ultimate, your health recovery is fairly high. Reminds me we need to look at the stats on this build when we get out of this. But so our health recovery, this is the equivalent of 1500 health recovery if you have 500 ultimate. Okay, that's 1500 health recovery. And this siphoning spells is 1500 magicka every time an enemy dies, whether it be a player character or a creature in the Imperial City. So it happens often. Huge sustain with the build. And then we did the same with Bloody Renewal for stamina, because we are block casting. When things die, we'll get some stamina back. So these seem to be working out really well. And then we went with Rejuvenation, 150 health magicka and stamina recovery. Couldn't really beat that. And then the important passives that we have right here: increase the amount of damage you can block. We also have a class passive that reduces our block mitigate, or increases our block mitigation, and we'll cap this out at some point as well for even more. And then you can see our block cost reduction right here. And then I think, yeah, so when we're blocking, we'll move around a little quicker. We've got that. We've got some extra health here, and then we've reduced the elemental status effects by 25%, reduced our dodge roll cost, and reduced our break free. So that is our CP. Like I said, nothing fancy here. I tried a light armor MagDK from ranged, and it just was not working because they take a metric ton of damage from stamina characters, and in BGs, because it's no CP, there is zero way to mitigate that damage or offset it. And so this right here, the penalties, increased damage taken from martial attacks, is absolutely killing light armor people, and especially in no CP scenarios where they can't offset it with their champion points. So there that is. Anyways, nothing special there. That's what we got. Oh, one change. Let's say you decide that you don't want the whip and you want to go with something else. You could take the whip off and you would come up here and throw chains on there, and you would start throwing people in. And you want to be a little bit more bursty, so we're going to go to the Mages Guild and we're going to drop the volcanic rune there. Maybe we switch these around. So now the play, let's buff up and see if we can find that dude that's walking around real quick. Where are you? There he is. Okay. So the play is put your rune on the ground, let it set. I'm going to pull the guy into me, and they're just going to eat that damage. Volcanic rune is nice because you can set it on a lot of different, like out here, look at that, that's obnoxious. So pretty interesting. Anyways, that's all we got, you guys. Be safe out there. Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. We're going to go over our third MagDK DK build of the day. This is going to be our Tanky MagDK DK. This is a tank for PvP purposes. You could run normal dungeons on this, vet dungeons, no problem. However, when you get to trials and stuff like that, I would check with your trial group and see what they would prefer you to be wearing. It's probably something that's going to buff the group or debuff the bosses, or both. So let's jump right into the build here. First things first, we are running Elfbane on this. Now the Elfbane is probably a flex 5-piece set on this for you. I'm running it because for two reasons. The other set that I'm running on this, I wanted to kind of mask the effect of it, and Elfbane, you can see at the bottom there, well, the 2-piece is max mag, the 3-piece is spell damage, the 4-piece is spell damage, and then the 5-piece, while in combat, increase the duration of your flame damage over time abilities by 5 seconds. And so what this does is Elfbane makes my Grothdar have almost 100% uptime. So now if you look at it, it says add max mag. When you deal damage to an enemy within 8 meters, you have 10% chance to create lava pools that swirl around you, dealing 2,000 flame damage to all enemies within 8 meters of you every 1 second for 5 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. And Elfbane actually extends the Grothdar proc by 5 seconds, making it have almost no cooldown, and so that's pretty cool. The only RNG part of it is you have a 10% chance to create lava pools. So there that is. But you can actually see it proc one time right into the next, and it works out really well. We are 5 heavy on this, 2 light, so both my Grothdar pieces are light, and there's a couple reasons within the light armor why we went this way on a tank. Now when we talk about tank for this too, this is tank for Battlegrounds or Imperial City. I haven't tested to see if these sets work in Cyrodiil currently, and I'm sure they probably don't. So this is Battlegrounds, and I'll show you some clips so you can kind of see what this looks like. So the second set that we paired it with is going to be Harbinger, and this setup plays kind of like a hybrid for me. And the reason being is I have to manage both my stamina pool and my mag pool. Now normally on a MagDK, everything that you do is block cast capable anyways. You're going to be holding block while you're whipping them or doing whatever. And so I thought that was kind of cool. Like, it's expected that MagDKs are going to apply dots and hold block, but I'm going to show you some clips right now. You'll get to see basically in that moment where I'm holding block, they're killing themselves, plus I'm applying my dots, and the combination of both those worked out really well. It worked out well in the fact I have low recoveries. I have low magicka recovery, low stamina recovery, and I think I do have some sturdy. Yeah, a couple sturdy pieces here, 2 sturdy pieces, and then I think reinforced and defending. So, but in those clips you can see that the people are killing themselves, and I've got my dots on them, and they don't even know what to do. Like, we can't even attack this guy because we're killing ourselves and his dots are killing us. Like, just get me out of here, get me away from this guy. So that's pretty funny. And I'm running a Resto staff on the back bar and then sword and board on my front bar, so we have all that block mitigation through there. It works out really well. In the Resto, we've got some healing on our back bar, and then I'm running the prismatic regen on each one of the jewelry. I could probably run spell damage on these and be a little bit more dangerous, but the recoveries ended up helping me much more. It ended up being like 250 of everything, so we kind of needed that. We're not short on damage. What'll happen is they realize they're just kicking their own butt, and my dots aren't helping the equation, and they need to move on. And if they don't, then, you know, they're gonna die. So it's been fun. Let's look at, we're gonna buff up here. So you can see our health recovery right now. We'll talk about this, but it's at 2400. Our magic recovery is 1349, and then our stamina recovery is at 916. Of course, we're a DK, so we do have the reset button, which is Battle Roar passive, so we can just hit take flight at any point or ferocious leap and get more stats, more resources in the tank. You can see our spell damage is 3284. This gets the job done. Our spell pin is fairly low. The light armor actually was helping us a lot with the pen situation too. 31,000 spell resistance and only 26 physical. I'm not so much worried about the physical because we're holding block the majority of the time anyways, and I kind of invite that type of damage. So if they're gonna stand and try and D-swing, sub-assault me, blast bones me from close, crystal weapon D-swing, they're going to be hurting themselves and also putting them in range for my dots to get on them. So that was kind of cool. Our crit resistance is right about where I'd like to be. When you're less than the 2k, you feel it. And so I would say right now we're in the meta where you aim for 2k crit resistance. And you can see our max mag is 29,000, our max health is 35,000, and our max stam is 20,000. This seems to work out really well. If you wanted to change this, you could. This is important. Your max health is important because if you read the Harbinger setup, when you block an attack, you deal damage to your attacker equal to 7% of your max health. So currently, it's 2,721 physical damage every time somebody tries to do, every time I block an attack. And so I had, in that Battleground footage, I had a sorcerer that was just staying back and trying to put damage into me, and he was trying to shield stack, and he was just taking ridiculous amounts of damage, and he couldn't figure out why. And I just Frank the tank walked up to him, put my dots on him, pierced him, and it was pretty funny. You know, people can't figure out why they're taking so much damage, and it's a combination of the Harbingers and the dot pressure that you're putting on people. So let's look at my action bar real quick. This actually worked out really well for me. So obviously Pierce is going to remove almost 9k resistances on people, and that's a lot of resistances to remove on people. You hit them with a Pierce, and they start kicking their own butt that much quicker, right? You just removed resistances off of them, and so that's pretty funny. The more damage you try and do to you, the more damage they take. And then Burning Embers, let me buff up on this so we can see what the... Burning Embers, 3,800 damage up front, and then 14k damage at the tail end. And then your damage over time, it says 14 seconds. That's actually going to be closer to 20 seconds of dot pressure, so I don't have to apply this often. That's a really nice thing. Same with this is gonna increase to almost 20 seconds, and so the tooltip would be higher, but 55 up front and 11,000 over time. So the overtime is going to be 5 seconds more damage over time on that. I am running Volcanic Rune, and I've been having a lot of fun with this Volcanic Rune. The knock-up on this is obnoxious. Like the stun on it is really silly, and so I also like the fact that I can place it wherever I want and people will run into it. And I'm going to show you a funny clip here of how obnoxious the CC is. I was just grabbing a rune, put this down, the guy knocked up, it allowed me to grab the rune, and then I just turned around and, you know, killed the guy after I had his captured his rune. And so it was pretty funny. But Volcanic Rune's part of the Mages Guild. If you haven't picked this up, go ahead and do that. You will have already seen this in my other videos to this point, or my other builds, because I'm a big fan of it right now, and interesting gameplay. We're running Burning Talons. It's going to be some upfront damage and then some damage over time, and then it's also got a synergy attached to it, and so that's pretty cool. The fun play is to knock them up in the air and stun them with this with direct damage, and then while they're still in the air coming down, hit Burning Talons, which applies direct damage and a damage over time, and it immobilizes them. So they need to break free of the stun, then break free of the immobilization. So yes, both of these, it takes up 2 slots to do what Fossilize would do by itself, but like I said, the ability to place this wherever I want and to use it as a interesting trap is a lot of fun. I really like that. And then there are times where you just have a really hard time hitting someone with a Fossilize, and I don't know what that's about. But anyways, this is kind of a fun combo I've had put together. And then we are running Ferocious Leap. Tooltip on it, I think it's 13, maybe 14. 13 sounds about right. We're not really focused on damage on this. Yeah, 13 and a half, and then we get a huge damage shield from this. On the back bar, we're running Rapid Regen, so that heal over time is pretty nice. And we're running Blessing of Protection. This will actually help us get to our armor cap, I believe. We'll check that out. We'll definitely hit our spell cap. Physical will still be under, but closer to 30k. and I'm running Elusive Mist for a reason. So one of the common plays is if I'm standing there and I'm taking a bunch of damage, my stamina runs out, and because Elfbane, I can apply my dots and just let them work, right? This is a dot as well. I can just apply these things and they'll last almost 20 seconds, assuming they don't cleanse them. So it's fairly Magicka friendly build, even with the low Magicka cost. But if I'm holding block and my stamina is getting whittled down pretty hard, then I can just switch to this and go into mist form and kite around a little bit while my stamina gets back in the tank. And I'm burning Magicka in that point, but that's no problem. As soon as I get some stamina back in the tank, I can come out of mist form and go right back into holding block and start letting my magic refill. And that's kind of how you juggle both your resources on this, is just bouncing back and forth between mist form, burning Magicka, and holding block and burning stamina, and meanwhile the enemy's killing themselves the whole time. It's pretty funny. We are running molten armaments. I like the duration on it. The cost is high, but the duration is the important thing. Also, your own damage with heavy attacks is increased by 50%. And so it's like our heavy attacks. When we're channeling heavy attacks from time to time, we'll apply our buffs. If they're backpedaling and they stopped attacking you because they can't figure out why they're taking damage, you can be channeling heavy attacks to get some more stamina back in the tank. Now, something about this too is obviously this works very well for low level to mid level MMR. High level MMR, most of the time, their burst is going to be exceptional. They're going to hang with each other, hang with a group. And so I'm not saying this build won't hang with them, but they'll get the hint real quick that they're taking an immense amount of damage when they attack me, and they'll just avoid me, avoid this type of setup. Like, you don't attack a Harbinger block tank, right? And so there might be that. Also, at higher MMR, everybody's very good at maintaining their heals, and they're also very good at cleansing. And so this build is for everyone up to high MMR. It's going to work really well. And then high MMR, it's going to be situational but fun. So there that is. And then we are running volatile armor, which also has a dot attached to it as well. And this is also, while active, your armor returns 1200 magic damage to enemies that use direct damage attacks against you in melee range. And so that just kind of adds to the pressure that Harbinger is doing, and then all my dot pressure on my front bar. And then we are running Swarming Scion. If for whatever reason I'm completely out of Magicka and I'm completely out of stamina, and I have the ultimate to pull this off, this would be the ideal ultimate. You're going to get a lot of resources back in the tank, and you can bully the hell out of people. So this will help you change the course of a fight. But 314 ultimate is a fairly high cost. So a couple things right down here at the bottom, you can see 1878 of our pen is coming from those 2 light armor pieces. And we've got 8% extra magic recovery by running the 2 light, and reduce the magic cost of some of your abilities by 4%. That's helping us out. Also, the light armor bonuses there. So we take 2% more martial damage because of the 2 light armor pieces, but we have 5 heavy, and then if you were to go look at the 5 heavy, the penalties of those increase your magic damage taken by 1% for each heavy armor piece. And so they kind of offset each other a little bit, not completely. We are taking more magical damage, but if you end up running into a problem with that, and I would say keep Elusive Mist, but if you wanted to put wings on there, you could. Like if you're running into a bunch of sorcerers, you put protective plate on there, reduces damage taken from projectiles by 50%. That might be something, but right now this combination of holding block, getting your dots on them, and letting them kill themselves and then when your stamina's out, going mist form, and then kind of lull around and letting your stamina fill back up has been kind of a funny play. It's worked out really well. So let's look at the CP here. So right now in my champion points, I've got Steed's Blessing, increase your out of combat movement speed by 20%. I have reduced cost of sneak by 50%. I am a vampire on this, and so what I can do is while I'm moving around, I can just hit crouch and I'll move up to my targets. And because I have reduced movement speed, the Phantom over here, that reduces the movement speed penalty by 25%. That's pretty cool. And reduce the radius you can be detected while sneaking by 3 meters. So when I hit crouch and I'm running to somebody, they might not know that. Rationer is pretty cool. It adds 10 minutes to the duration of your eating and for food, and then Treasure Hunter. But let's look at this real quick. I wanted to show you guys something. Let me make sure that I do have. Yeah, so we are a provisioner on this, and then when I go and I pop a Bewitched Sugar Skull, 3 hours. 3 hours on my food. That's awesome, you know. So if you got a lot of very expensive food and you are a provisioner on a character, wow, that's gonna make your costs a lot less. What were we talking about? Oh, so if I'm moving around, just want to show you this real quick, and I hit crouch while I'm moving, you know, now I can just kind of run around. Nobody even knows that I'm there. I put my dots on somebody, I hold block and pierce them, and then we just kind of let them kill themselves, right? Pretty fun. Doesn't take a whole lot of resources. Let's jump in and look at the rest of the CP. Okay, slottables. So right now I have Untamed Aggression, increase your weapon and spell damage by 150. We have Wrathful Strikes, increasing our weapon and spell damage by 165. We have Deadly Aim, increasing our damage done with single target attacks by 10%. And then we have Thaumaturge, increasing our damage over time effects by 10%. These are important on this build. It increases our upfront damage of our dots, and then the dot tick, the damage over time effect. And the two other important things on this field is we have an extra 1400 offensive penetration from here. If it weren't for our light armor and this passive right here, we wouldn't have the pen that we do, which isn't a whole lot, but it's not really needed. Increase your chance to apply magical status effects by 60%. This is important because of the DK passives and applying the burning status effect. And then War Mage, increasing our spell damage yet again by 100, so that works out well. And then jumping into here, we have 40 points, so we got an extra 4% healing taken, and then reduce the damage you take from magical attacks. That's important considering we're wearing 5 heavy. And then we're starting to put points into resilience to increase our crit resistance even more, so that's good. And I'm gonna need to put some points into Tireless Discipline as we get them to drive up our stamina. This is a non-slottable, it's just a passive, so that'll be nice. And then right now I've got 40 points over here for an extra 1040 max mag, so that is the blue tree. And then the red tree right here, you can run this a couple different ways. Right now I have Rejuvenation, which gives me an extra 150 health, magicka, and stamina. I definitely would run with that. And then right now I have Bloody Renewal and Siphoning spells. Both of these, every time an enemy, player, or a creature or whatever dies, I get 1500 magicka and stamina back. So the sustain on this is really nice, especially when you're farming Imperial City, Telvar farming, and stuff like that. There's always trash mobs and things, and so this provides a great form of sustain on a build that's fairly low recovery. And then I'm running Strategic Reserve. This is going to give you the equivalent of 1500 health recovery when you're at 500 ultimate. And I sit on my ultimates on this build unless it's to secure a kill or I need resources. because this will drive up my it'll drive up my health recovery. And then we could probably dig over here a little bit farther, but right now we're putting points into our block mitigation. We got an extra 4% block mitigation, that's cool. And then we've lowered our block cost, that's cool, a passive. And then our movement speed while sprinting is increased by 8%, and our max health is increased by 1120. And elemental status effects applied to you, we reduce those by 25%, which is smart considering we don't have a purge. And then our dodge roll, we've lowered that. I found that I might be able to come off some points on this. We don't find ourselves dodge rolling as much as we would obviously block with a Harbinger build. And then our break free is reduced. So that is our CP on it. It's been a lot of fun. You guys can check out those clips, and have a good day.